Hey, what's up? I'm Paco, and welcome to the Weekend Recap, the #1 recap in the world that is hosted by me specifically. Adrian made a couple of mistakes in his Champions League recap video because he was rushing to get to the Impact's Champions League match against the Priestess, so he is being punished. Moving right along. In the Premier League, Manchester United had quite the test of their solid form of late as they went to Goodison to take on Ancelotti's Everton. It was great to see Andre Gomes in the starting 11 again for the first time since November 3rd when he suffered that injury against Spurs. What a recovery, pretty quick for such a horrible break, and he's already back in the starting 11. Well, United had a terrible start, conceding just 3 minutes into the match thanks to another De Gea blunder, but Bruno, he continues to be the heart of this United attack, and he scored a beautiful goal from range past Jordan Pickford. He scored in 3 consecutive matches now for United and has 2 goals and 2 assists in the Prem so far. But he's been more than just goal contributions. He makes the rest of the midfield look good at United, which has been a near impossible task in the last few years. United were poor in the second half as they were completely overrun and conceded 12 corners. They nearly scored in the 92nd minute and then did concede shortly after as a shot deflected off of Maguire and in. The issue was Sigurdsson laying in front of De Gea in an offside position and having to move out of the way. Now, here are the rules. A player in an offside position at the moment the ball is played or touched by a teammate is only penalized on becoming involved in active play by interfering with play by playing or touching a ball passed or touched by a teammate, or interfering with an opponent by preventing an opponent by playing or being able to play the ball by clearly obstructing the opponent's line of vision, or clearly attempting to play a ball which is close when this action impacts on an opponent, or making an obvious action which clearly impacts on the ability of an opponent to play the ball. So he did not attempt to play the ball. He was in the line of vision of De Gea, but he was sitting on the ground, you know? Had he been standing up, I would totally say, without a doubt, you can't give that goal, but it gets murky since he's sitting on the ground and he's gotten out of the way of the shot. So I'm not sure what the protocol is on that one exactly, if I'm totally honest with you. As you can see, justifications in both directions. Ancelotti couldn't though, and he got a red card for his trouble after the match. Liverpool, it finally came to an end for them. Now their lead over the rest of the league is just 22 points. And you got the feeling that when, or if they were going to lose, when, in this case, it would come against a team like this, as Liverpool have been getting progressively worse attacking-wise in the last few weeks. But take nothing away from Watford, as Ismail Assar was brilliant and is getting better all the time for them, closer to what he was capable of at Stade Rennais, and Deeney finished them off to make it 3-0. Huge victory for them as Pearson continues to turn their fortunes around in a big way, while Liverpool, maybe they'll benefit from this loss, you know? Maybe this will kick them back into gear. You can't help but think that when you have such a huge lead like they do, that it's going to be incredibly difficult to not let some complacency creep in. That 3-0 loss is the biggest loss by an English top-flight leader since 1985. Norwich City got a massive win at home against Leicester City as they are desperate for points right now, sitting in 20th at the moment. If they can build off of this and hope some results go their way, they could yet survive. Wolves versus Tottenham was an interesting matchup over the weekend as Mourinho tried to break his curse of being unable to defeat players he's managed before. Spoiler, he couldn't. But it's not a surprise that this Spurs team, playing with Dele Alli as their striker and a backline where Eric Dyer is their main center back and Paulo Gazzaniga is in goal. I'm sorry, but this Spurs team, you don't need me to tell you, is suffering through injuries, making it very difficult, nigh impossible to field a consistent 11, and the players are getting more and more tired as time goes on. A 3-2 loss for them, but some positives for Spurs will be Bergwijn scoring again, Jedson coming on and playing fairly well. I mean, yeah, there weren't a ton of positives for them. Jota and Jimenez continue to sparkle for Wolves, and Wolves are putting some major pressure on both Chelsea and United. Speaking of, City have a game in hand and can cut Liverpool's lead down to 19 points. Just 19 points. Sounds funny saying that. Spurs fall to 7th on the same amount of points as Sheffield, who didn't play this weekend, and Burnley's 6-match unbeaten run keeps them in the top 10. Let's start with the weirdest match in Germany, a match where the performance from Bayern away to Hoffenheim should have been the main talking point. A performance from Bayern that saw them put 6 goals past their opponents in just over 60 minutes, Coutinho with a brace, the youngster Xerxes getting in on the action in Lewandowski's stead. A great win for them. But before the match was up, with about 15 or so minutes remaining, the match was stopped due to the Bayern fans unfurling a banner about Hoffenheim's own... No. But before the match was up, with about 15 or so minutes remaining, the match was stopped due to Bayern fans unfurling a banner about Hoffenheim's owner, Dietmar Hopp. Anti-Hops banners and chants. So the referee took all the players off of the pitch, and later Hansi Flick, some of the Bayern squad, their sporting director, and even Oliver Kahn went and pleaded with the fans to take down the anti-Hop banners, and when they did, the referee brought the squads back on. It took about 5 minutes in total, but once play had resumed, the players sort of protested against the insulting sentiment from the ultras, or the Bayern supporters, I should say. Sorry, I'm in Montreal Impact mode. And they didn't play. Even after the players and management had asked the fans to stop, the fans continued with the insults to Hop. So that's why the players didn't play for the last 15 minutes, and they just sort of kicked it around. So 6-0 there, and then the next day during Union Berlin and Wolfsburg, there was another insulting banner directed at Hop held up. So that match was suspended as well for a bit. This time, a banner that had Hop's face with a crosshair over it. Yikes, it's one that's been going around. That match ended 2-2, by the way. Any interest in an explainer around this situation? Why Hop is so hated? Keep in mind that even last weekend, there was an anti-Hop banner at Gladbach versus Hoffenheim. Same one that was at the Wolfsburg match. Bayer Leverkusen versus Leipzig, two very informed teams. Leverkusen were fresh off of eliminating one of the 4 Portuguese teams that all were booted out of the Europa League last week, while Leipzig were on a 3-match winning streak. This one, however, ended in a 1-1 draw. Patrick Schick scored the equalizer, another assist for Nkunku, his 12th of the season. Earlier, Leverkusen were ahead due to Havertz setting up Bailey, and speaking of assists, Havertz has 4 in his last 3 matches. Things you love to see. FC Köln winning another match, as these boys have been winning big lately. They beat Schalke 3-0, adding to their 5-0 win over Hertha and 4-0 over Freiburg from this month, so February was a big month for them. Borussia Mönchengladbach won 3-2 over Augsburg. What a second half that was, man. Stindl puts Mönchengladbach 2-0 up in the 53rd, then Augsburg makes it 2-1, then 3-1 for Borussia, then 3-2 with 7 minutes remaining in regulation. Borussia locked it down though, and they escaped with the 3-2 win over Augsburg. This is rapid fire stuff. Are you keeping up? Because Dortmund won 1-0, so it's all very exciting at the top of the table. Yes, Bayern have opened up a 3-point lead over second, but look at how close it is. Keeping in mind Borussia Mönchengladbach has a match in hand. This isn't over, and I hope it stays this close until the end, man. That would be a juicy, juicy race to watch. Guess what? Next weekend, the 7th, the Borussia Derby. You're not going to want to miss that one. Bonus competition, Carabao Cup final. The way the match was going early on, it felt as though it was a matter of time before Man City found a way past Orjan Nyland, Villa's 3rd choice keeper now that Pepe Reina is at the club and Tom Heaton is ahead of him as well. Sure enough, Phil Foden found Aguero in the box, and the Argentinian made no mistake. Then they scored from a corner that shouldn't have been a corner, and it felt like we could be heading towards a similar situation as last season's FA Cup final, in which Watford got absolutely embarrassed by City, especially when you saw the attacking swagger that City had about them. This was City's, perhaps not at their best, but exhibiting just how dominant they can be in that first half when they're clicking, and up against the team that was coming off of 3 straight losses. Foden, for me, was City's most dangerous player on the pitch in the first half. Actually, I think he was man of the match, actually. His touch, ability to beat players, speed, vision, passing have all developed at an extremely impressive rate since Guardiola has been there, so he'll be a big, big talent for the future. And for now, even. But despite all things clearly pointing to City domination, Villa didn't go down easy, and they took full advantage of yet another John Stones mistake. Well, less of a mistake, more just a mishap, I guess, if we're being kind to the guy. In jostling for the ball, his slip fell kindly to El Ghazi, a bit fortunate, but there was no fortune about the pinpoint accuracy of the cross from El Ghazi. Perfectly placed for Samatta to power a header past Bravo, 2-1, and we had a final on our hands. And there was even more improvement from Villa in the second half, making it a very nervy ending to this match, with Engels forcing Bravo to push his header onto the post. Very scary finish for City, but they held on to win their favorite cup, their 7th League Cup, their 5th since the 2013-14 season, their 3rd in a row, and the trophy they have won the most in their club history. So, Italy had a mixed weekend. First of all, many matches were postponed, all but 4 matches actually. This, of course, meant that due to the coronavirus fears, even the Derby d'Italia was postponed all the way to mid-May, which is interesting. The temperature around the league surrounding this This announcement is pretty hot. A lot of people are outraged. A similar sort of sentiment to previous disagreements between Inter and Juve. If you've watched my Roost of the Rivalry from this last week on why Juve and Inter don't like each other so much, then you'll sort of know what I'm saying. Link to that here. Just tap the iCard or click it if you're on a computer. But anyways, there's definitely a possibility of the Serie A coming to a complete halt for a bit as the number of known cases of coronavirus has hit around 1,700 in Italy with a death toll of 34, which is scary. But to the matches that have been played, Rino Gattuso is getting some solid results now from Napoli, and this weekend was no exception. And would you believe me if I told you that they managed to win at home? They certainly did, my man. I mean, it helps that it was against a completely rotten Torino side that is plummeting closer to relegation with every match that passes. A team that has lost 6 Serie A matches in a row. I don't think they'll actually be relegated, but they are horrible right now. But Napoli is a team that gets major stage fright in playing in front of their own home fans, so the 2-1 win was a welcome sight for them. Quite a convincing win as well. Torino scored right at the death after getting completely dominated by Napoli in this one. Lazio played against Bologna at home as Rome is still a safe space in regards to coronavirus, or it is as of now. With the long incubation period of the virus, it could start cropping up soon. You never know, but hopefully not. Ciro set up a goal for Luis Alberto for the first goal, and just 3 minutes later, Luis Alberto paid that forward and set up Joaquin Correa, my favorite of the Correas. Roma won a wild match against Cagliari, the second half of which provided 4 goals and elevated the final score to 4-3 for Roma. That's 2 wins in a row for Roma now, unbeaten in 4 matches across all competitions. And finally, Atalanta had to do it to him, man. For the 3rd time this season, they scored 7 goals in a single match. Their latest victim, Lecce. A hat-trick for Zapata, one of those goals being a beautiful free kick. Ilicic with a goal and 2 assists. Pasalic with a couple assists. 2 substitutes came on and scored. Just madness, man. Atalanta have scored 70 goals already in the league. They mad. So, Lazio's win takes them above Juve, who obviously have a match in hand. Lazio unbeaten update, now unbeaten in 21 matches. Napoli, as you can see, have made it back up to the top 6. Shout out Gattuso, those boys were down in like 13th for a while. Hey everyone, the future Copa del Rey champions Real Sociedad won in La Liga this weekend, as they aren't too picky as to where they're picking up dubs lately. Their win at home against Valladolid, goal courtesy of who else but Januzaj. That made for 5 victories in a row across all competitions, man. And next up, they play against Mirandes in the Copa del Rey. That's on Wednesday, in case you want to catch that. Quite a few draws this weekend in La Liga, including Atletico Madrid against 20th placed Espanyol. Atletico continue to be the weirdest team to watch. They've managed their lowest point total after 26 matches since Simeone has been the manager. Lower than his first full season, actually. Really could use some goal scorers at that club, all of them unreliable in front of goal. Valencia grabbed a 2-1 win over Real Betis. Betis, after having a nice spike of form at the end of November until about mid-January, they've just been crap lately. They've been winless since January 19th now. That's 7 matches without a victory. And speaking of poor runs of form, Athletic Bilbao, coming into their match against Villarreal this weekend, had been winless since December 1st in La Liga and were on a 4-match losing streak. Yikes. Villarreal, on the other hand, had been climbing up the table in that time, but the winless run had to come to an end eventually for Bilbao. It was time. A penalty from Raul Garcia was the winner, and they could have had 2 if not for a save from the penalty spot to deny Iñaki Williams. 1-0 Bilbao. The winless run is over. As for El Clasico, the match many were looking forward to as the match of the weekend. Personally, I was looking forward to Juve Inter, but hey, the first half of El Clasico was forgettable if you ask me. Real Madrid were quite pedestrian. Griezmann absolutely should have put Barcelona ahead, but his finishing is still suspect in Barca. The man has been anything but clinical for them, and from a cutback, seeing him put it over the bar like that from about the penalty spot, unfortunately for him and Barca fans, it's an all too familiar sight this season. Whatever Zidane said at the half worked, and suddenly Real Madrid were the ones that were attacking with the most intent, with Vinicius causing havoc down the left flank. Despite Semedo being good at times at right back for Barcelona, he left way too much space for Vinicius in behind him on way too many occasions. And it was only a matter of time before the young Brazilian opened the score. Braithwaite came on and added some much needed pace and danger down Barcelona's right flank, but it was another sub, Mariano, who left his mark on this match, for Real Madrid of course. He came on in the 90th 91st and scored a goal in the 92nd from an acute angle to give Real Madrid the 2-0 Clasico win. Big up to Courtois for the clean sheet, Casemiro for shutting down Messi all day, Marcelo with one of his better defensive displays, at least one of the better ones that I've seen from him in a while. It was a great win for Real Madrid, and that takes them to the top of the table, 1 point clear of Barcelona. Sevilla's win keeps them in third place, now 9 points behind Barcelona. Getafe, they stay on pace, as Valencia and Sociedad close in on Atletico. Bonus League, man. MLS is back for its 25th season. I won't be able to talk about every match, as a few are still to be played as I film on Sundays around 5 p.m. And also there are 431 teams in the MLS now, but hey, I can tell you that the one Canadian team to get a victory was the Montreal Impact, as they won at the Big O, the cavernous Olympic Stadium here in Montreal. I was there, chilling on the bleachers, and thankfully saw a solid performance from Montreal. Certainly our best that I've seen of the season so far, and it's always refreshing to see Urruti convert one of his chances. You know, you don't always get to see that. So last season was a rough one for him. Hopefully Thierry Henry can be a good influence on him and bring out the best from him. We had big performances from Kyoto, Louis Binks, who we got from Tottenham, by the way. Happy with the team. Looking forward to how they can continue to grow and keep that Champions League run going, man. This video is going on very long, so let's fly through some results quickly. Colorado defeated DC 2-1 in the season opener, while Atlanta took on the new guys, Nashville, and beat them 2-1 also. Ezequiel Barco with a goal for Atlanta. Zimmerman with a goal for Nashville. New York Red Bulls and Cincy played out a 5-goal thriller, with the host New York coming out on top 3-2. A really good second half from Cincinnati, and after Jurgen Locadia scored for them in the 83rd to make it 3-2, the last few minutes were a fun watch, but ultimately Cincinnati start their season with a loss again. Hopefully, for their fan base's sake, they won't have as shocking a season as last year, where they won 6 out of 34 matches. 6 wins, 6 draws, 22 losses. Seattle beat Chicago 2-1 at home. Chicago with their terrible summer camp looking ass new club badge, an L on the pitch to match the L on their chest. I'm sorry, that's a little bit harsh, but I don't like their badge. 93rd minute winner from Jordan Morrison sealed it for Seattle. That's, of course, sealed it for Seattle. That's, of course, the follow-up to the Sleepless in Seattle. The match I really wanted to see was LAFC taking on Inter Miami, but editor Adrian will have to add that result here. I won't bother giving you the standing. It's been one match after all, but I will bother to thank you for spending your time with me on this Monday. What a pleasure it has been recapping the weekend with you. My name is Paco, of course. Subscribe if you're new around here or want more from myself and Adrian from Rabona TV, and take care.